Welcome to part 3 and the final of our series on working with Mai Tai in Studio One 3. In this video we're going to talk about the 3 ADSR envelopes as well as the effects panels and the 7 effects contained within effects A and B panels. And to start, let's go ahead and tackle the ADSRs over here. Now I've got a pretty simple patch here, 2 oscillators. The filter is active as well as the character. Actually, I'll go ahead and disable the character there. And what does our sound like as it is? Pretty straightforward. In oscillator 1, we've got a sawtooth. In oscillator 2, we've got a square. And our filter cutoff is all the way up, and we have a low-pass filter on. Now, beginning with our amp envelope, this is going to allow us to determine how our audio is going to be shaped over time as far as its level or amplitude is concerned. Right now we have an immediate attack, and in order to adjust these parameters we can use the knobs down below for ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, and release. We can also come up to these knobs and drag, and then as you see our attack adjusts itself down below. We also have these areas that we can grab and adjust our slope, and if I adjust the decay you can see that updates in the graphical display. If we increase these times beyond the display shows for the time scale, it will just adjust itself and add that. So if I increase the release time here, you can see that will then adjust, and we have a readout in the display of seconds down at the very bottom, and then as I bring that release time back, it will adjust itself accordingly. So we have introduced an attack. This should be a slower release, or a slower attack time. It will be a more gradual increase to our full volume. Our delay is at 0 right here, and our sustain is set to 0 dB, so there's going to be no drop from our full amplitude to our sustain. If I were to drop our sustain to say about minus 3 dB and then introduce some decay, then we're going to have a gradual introduction to our full amplitude and then a gradual decline to our sustain volume. And let's go ahead and decrease that sustain level to make this more apparent. I'll increase attack and decay. Decay even more. Now as I release, we have an immediate halting of the sound. Now releasing the key on the keyboard. If I were to increase the release time, first I'll go ahead and release, and we have an immediate stop of the sound. If I go ahead and increase our release time, and then now I release, and it's more gradual. And again, we can use this graphical display to see where we are working with our seconds and time. If we also click and hold, we can see that we're at 4.31 seconds for our release time. After letting go of our keyboard key, 4.3 seconds before we reach silence. And that is the amp envelope. Let's move on to the ones below, and I'll actually take the attack back and our sustain up to 0 dB, get rid of our decay, our release. Now in order to use envelope 2 and 3, we need to open up our modulation matrix, and then we can come to this first one here and we'll choose envelope 2 and 3 are here, but for our instance we'll choose envelope 2, and we can assign this to any number of parameters here. So there's a ton of choices and a ton of flexibility for creating sounds and getting your ideas out. We're going to work with the filter cutoff here. So this dial here, I'll go ahead and select, and now our envelope 2 and filter cutoff are tied together. If I move this slider, moving left or right will kind of adjust the polarity And as we move further to either side, it's going to increase the effect that our envelope has on shaping the timbre of our sound. So I'm going to go ahead and take this cutoff down to about 677 Hertz. And let's just see how this sounds at the moment with no effect being applied. We've cut some of the frequencies out by lowering that cutoff. But if we were to come and move this to the right, and let's say make our attack gradual, let's take it into at about one and a half seconds nearly, so we can really gradually hear this increase of our higher frequencies being introduced based on what we set here. Okay, and then envelope 2 and envelope 3 also have this dial here for setting a delay time. And the delay time, we have a choice between 0 milliseconds and all the way up to 20 seconds. And this is going to determine a set amount of time before our envelope generator kicks in. So if I then change this to 2 seconds, about 2 seconds, we're going to have a 2-second period before this gradual attack is heard and our filter cutoff releases some of those higher frequencies. And again, we can come in and use these slopes. Introduce some decay. Okay, so I think that you can begin to see how we can use these envelopes to really shape our sounds. And we could spend a ton of time here tweaking sounds, but I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. So one thing that I would recommend doing is coming and taking a look at some of the other patches that are included within Mai Tai, and then just taking a look to see what other sound designers have done and how are they using envelopes. So we've got envelope 2 here going to the filter cutoff. Let's take a look at one other one here. We've got envelope 2 going to our mod wheel and the filter cutoff as well. So that's envelope 2 and the filter cutoff tend to go together a lot. But if you go through some of these presets, you're going to find other uses for envelope 2 and envelope 3 as well. And just take a look at how other people have used those in their presets. So let's now move on to the effects, and I'm going to take this back to the default, and I'm going to disable our modulation, any modulation that may be down there, and be sure we don't have any effects on. Take the reverb and delay off, and as you can see, we can activate or deactivate these effects by clicking on their name. And how does our patch sound right now? Let's I'm going to take the velocity and key off. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with modulation then. Now the modulation actually has 3 different modes we can choose from, and they include chorus, flanger, or phaser. And with chorus, we have delay. Now with higher settings on the delay, this will create fuller chorusing effects, and lower settings will produce a greater harmonic effect. And our speed here, with slower settings, we're going to get a sweeping effect, and As we go higher, we're going to get more aggressive modulation. Our width is going to affect the degree of change in the delay line. Our depth functions kind of like a dry-wet blend, and we have a mono button here where we can sum our wet signal to mono. So let's just quickly go through and listen to how these parameters are going to affect our sounds, our two oscillators. And I'm going to go ahead and increase this depth. Remember, it's kind of like a wet-dry blend, so we can hear a more pronounced effect. Okay, that is our chorus. Now flanger, a lot of these parameters are going to be redundant throughout these other two. So again, we have a delay, we have speed, width, and this we also have the addition of feedback. We have sync as well, where we can sync the effect to in relation to our song tempo. And we have this wet-dry blend or depth. And we also have the mono, which will sum our wet signal to mono. So let's play around with these for a quick second. Okay, moving on, we have phaser, and we can see we've got shift, our rate, our width, again, feedback, sync, and mono. Okay, that is modulation. And next, delay. We won't spend too much time here. We've got a low and high for cutting our low and high frequencies. We have a rate to sync in relation to our song tempo, feedback, mix, kind of the wet-dry blend. With reverb activated, we're going to send our wet delay signal, a bit of that to the reverb. We also have several options here for panning. We can turn it off, panned, dotted, or double. And let's actually choose a different patch here. So I'll take this reverb off. We're working with delay, no modulation, EQ. Okay, this should work pretty well. So again, low and high, this will affect our frequencies. Our rate of delay. Feedback. Now if we come to panned, we've got left to right stereo panning. And we can send some to the reverb here. Moving on, we'll take a look at reverb, and we won't spend much time here. We've got pre-delay, we've got damp for attenuating our higher frequencies in the wet reverb signal. We've got a size, low and high for adjusting our frequencies and cutting those, and a mix. And that is our reverb. Moving on to effects panel B, we first have a Gator, and we will again change our patch. Let's choose a lead for this. Let's see how this one sounds. Okay, that'll do. Let me take off the EQ and these other effects. We're only working with the Gator here. So to start with the Gator, we have numerous presets that we can choose from. So if I go ahead and select one, okay, and so this first control that we have here is our beats, and this will adjust how this cycle works in relation to our tempo. And if we were to change this to one bar, then this will cycle through in 1 bar. If we change this to half a note, then it's basically going to double. So if I come back to bar, now we have a stereo setting here. Right now we're working in mono. If you notice that when I click stereo, we have this line that is introduced in the center. And in this way we can come in and click above and below that line and create some stereo gating effects. So now if I come in here, we've got a depth, the wet and dry blend. All the way to the left we have our dry signal, and to the right we have more of the process. Okay, and that is the Gator. EQ. Of course, raising these up, we will boost frequencies, low frequencies at here and higher at the right. We can control click to put these back to a neutral position. And we have 2 modes here for if we're working with a lead or a bass. This is basically going to adjust the frequency range that we are tweaking here in our EQ. So we are working with a lead, so we can cut, and just so you can hear what the slight difference is between lead and bass, if I go ahead and select bass, I'll play lead back for a quick second. Okay, that is our EQ. Next we have distortion, and this is pretty straightforward. Maybe I'll drop the volume a touch. We have a variety of different distortion modes that we can choose from, hard tube, and then adjust our drive. Fuzz. And finally, our last effect is auto pan. And we have the option to sync, which it is on right now. And when we have sync, we can then choose a different resolution here to play along with our song tempo here. Now, if I go ahead and play back, the depth is basically going to control how hard our panning left and right is going to be. So as I increase this, it's going to become more evident the panning that we're using. And as I take that down, if I take sync off, and that is our auto pan. And this concludes our series on working with Mai Tai. I really tried to keep this one condensed and as quick as possible, but I think this was probably ended up being another long one. So trying to cover all these features in depth is hard to do. So if you stuck with it, I hope that you found it worth your time and that you've picked up some things to help you with your sound design and using Mai Tai in your future productions. Thanks for watching.